What's up, YouTube? Deadrock here, bringing the video today. Today we're going to be going over the format going into the NAWCQ. Now, I think it's really important that we take some knowledge from Knoxville and put it towards this. I was working on this video earlier, then Knoxville happened, and my video actually just got slightly delayed. So we moved some things around. We kind of switched some things up. First thing I want to say is, like, my regular tier system isn't really that good for what I believe the current format's like. I think we have like a big four, which is obvious, but then there's so much rogue that's like actually viable within the format right now that it's really interesting. We're in I guess on a healthy but not healthy format. Well, it's kind of weird. We'll get there. But we'll go over the decks right now anyway, like YCS Knoxville. The thing is, you guys just keep in mind before we get into these, don't take YCS Knoxville with too much this is what the format is. You got to remember that going into Nats, especially different members of different teams, they're holding their little text back. Obviously, yes, they're practicing and they're testing for nationals with YCS Knoxville, but you got to remember there's certain things that are probably being held back, certain little secrets going into Nats, like the spice and the stuff like that these groups hold to each other going into Nats. So it's just really a big event, right? So that's one thing that just to keep in mind. Alright, so first off, let's talk about Orcus. Orcus, I think it was either Orcus or Thunder Dragon that had the biggest showing in the top cut. The really cool thing about YCS Knoxville is that there was only 4 different decks in the top cut. Maybe there was a few different Orcus variants, but it was Orcus nonetheless. It was insane. There's 4 different decks. We had no rogue in the top cut at all, so it's really interesting to see there. Now, why I think Orcus is probably the best deck of the format, I think it has the highest ceiling and it's the most consistent. You can start your combos off with 1 card, and that's just absolutely insane. Any 2 monsters right now make a mermaid, and then a lot of times they don't even need to go to a mermaid to get to where their combo needs to be. I think that before the YCS Knoxville happened, it was a lot of people playing higher card decks with dangers and all this other stuff, where a lot of decks that ended up topping YCS Knoxville ended up being a 40 card Orcus variant that just is more consistent. It gets to your combo a little bit faster, but it's not as strong as of a board. I also think that this deck probably has maybe the highest ceiling or the second highest ceiling. Thunder Dragon makes some pretty crazy boards, so it's pretty crazy to see. But I do think this is just in terms of consistency and overall just matchup, it's probably one of the better decks of the format, or maybe the best. I think it's probably better choice than Thunder Dragon going into the format, but we'll see here. All right, so we've already mentioned its name a couple times. Second one on the list here, we got Thunder Dragon. Now, this deck is oh my goodness. It we saw Summon Sword get hit, which stopped the Pier, but with the Crusadia not the Crusadia stuff, the Guard Dragon stuff, this deck actually gets pretty insane. Being able to bring out multiple negates in a turn, with the setup of Colossus not being able to search, it's absolutely really powerful. Now, I believe that it is still the Second Light variant that's been topping. I don't know if I really completely agree with this, with Mine being in the format so heavily. A lot of even Orcus players started playing Mine. This is really interesting. Just because it, honestly, Mine hurts the Thunder Dragon matchup, just a lot. So it's just really interesting to see here. But yeah, Thunder Dragon is absolutely insane. Being able to set up multiple negates, a really good stun deck, and it really can OTK at any time. It's really interesting. A really good deck, definitely one of the better contenders. That I think if it was the second most represented in the top cut, I think it was Orcus was the most, and then Thunder Dragon. And let's talk about Sky Strikers now. I do think that this is one of the better decks of the format as well. It's in the top 4, specifically with Mine. This deck is probably the best deck right now to utilize Mine. It just, Mine is so good overall, being able to stop your opponent from attacking, combined with Sky Strikers only really ever having one monster on board, your opponent is just going to be stunned to the point where they have to hit the mine to be able to play. And when, you know, if you're able to stop that with like an anchor or whatever like that, you just control the game. It just became a really good control card for the deck. That alongside Hayate being able to attack directly when mine's up on the field, so you just leave the monsters on the field. You keep gaining an advantage until you can pretty much out your mine and go for the OTK, and obviously you can out it just by playing a new field spell, or you can just out it by playing multi-roll playing multi-roll Ascend It. There's so many ways to get rid of mine when you finally do have the advantage just to be able to go for the win. The deck is actually insane still. One Kagari, I don't think the deck would be as strong as without mine, but with mine in the game, I definitely think it's just really good. I think the one really good thing about Striker is that it just has good matchups all around. Like, yeah, Thunder Dragon can hurt it, but like a lot of times if you hand trap them once, they're weak, like their board ends up on a weaker board. You're able to play, like, you know, Impermanence and Widow Anchor, which is able to stop the Colossus. So you have a lot of outs to certain cards. I think that's just super good. I think that overall it probably just has the best like round of matchups versus Rogue, Meta, and all that. But its ceiling just isn't as high. There's not as much as you can do, especially with one Kagari. Once you use your one Kagari, you kind of really need to be drawing off of that engage, or it's not really going to be really worth using your Kagari even. I definitely think the deck has changed up in the way you need to play it and conserve things. You know, you really have to watch what you're doing and be able to gain advantage. So I think that this deck has the lowest ceiling just because it's just a control deck. It doesn't do super power plays. It can OTK with like Borrow Sword by stealing your opponent's monsters and like something from the graveyard with Shark Cannon, but it's not quite to like the power of the other decks have. But I think it's like one of the more consistent decks, and then it's also just like one of the decks that can utilize really good cards like mine and just be able to do big things and have good matchups overall against like everything. And then the last one in the list is, you guys guessed it, Salaman Great. This deck is like honestly kind of surprising that it's staying around for so long. It really just ends on like a negate and like whatever they hard draw. So like I think that like just being super consistent is what keeping this deck alive. Not only that, but they're able to make Abyss Dweller really easily right now, which is just super good against Orcus in the format. So like it kind of makes sense why they're sticking around, but like I feel like this deck is probably definitely the lowest tier of the format of the big four anyway. Still completely viable, can still, I don't see it winning like Nats. I just don't see somebody winning Nats with Salaman Great. I think it's a good choice to play if you want to, but I don't see someone winning with it. I don't think the deck is just like that powerful. All right, so now we're gonna move on to tier 2. Before we move on to tier 2 though, I want to mention that tier 2 and tier 3 are pretty much the exact same thing. Right now it's just like all our tier 1 decks, and then like everything else, and then there's like shit after that. So like I can't even mention all the decks like that I want to put in the tier 2/3. Just keep it with a grain of salt. I kept the graphics still saying tier 2 and 3. But like just they're all pretty much the same, guys. Like the format is really really weird. Because all these decks like are pretty viable. Like none of the decks just completely like stomp these, but like they're just overall better than these few decks. So first off, we'll go over Alter, guys. It won in Nats. It is still a very powerful deck. Multifigure is insane. It can play cards like IO and Secret Village, which completely just stomp certain decks. The deck's alright, you know, especially with the addition of Crackdown, which is going to be like a herd of a lot right now. Crackdown is a super good card for a lot of these rogue decks. Altergeist is still powerful. It's still good. It's unhit, it's untouched, and it can't keep up with like the pace of the game. For a control deck that sets traps, it just can't keep up, but it's still a very good option. It can still do well, and you know, I can see this winning in Nats or like NAWCQ over Altergeist. Actually, I feel like this deck has like a little bit more power, not Altergeist, than Salaman Great, but we'll see. I don't think it's gonna do that well at Nats anyway. Next one up is Trickstar. Like I said, guys, I'm doing these in no specific order, so don't be like, oh, all right. Trickstar, this deck like seen some play. It was recently innovated with like a Pleiades and Instant Fusion, just able to do a few more things here and there. Now, I still don't think this deck's super good. I don't think it's like a deck that's gonna win a YCS or like Nats or anything like that. But it's there. You should know what it does. I think if you don't know what Trickstars do by now, though, I think it's really easy. They just utilize certain cards like Super Poly and stuff like that, power cards, to keep themselves in the game. Next up, Guru Control. I actually do think this is one of the better stun decks of the format. Like it can just play so many things. It can just do so many things. Having a negate that's searchable, it's just super good. But like, all the decks are playing Called by the Grave right now. Crackdown helps this deck quite a bit too. But like, yeah, I don't know. Subterra Guru, I think it's something you should know how to play against. And if you know how to play against it, you should be able to be like fine, unless you just can completely get floodgated, which is like a big part of the deck. But if you know how to play against it, where to stop it, it becomes pretty easy from there on out. Just make sure you side back row hate and stuff like that, and you're pretty much good to go. Next one I want to talk about is True Draco. This is just another one like Crackdown helped them out again. They can also play Mystic Mine. They can do certain things. Some of these people do play Mystic Mine, some don't. It depends if you want to keep your diagram or not. But I definitely think that this deck is still powerful. It's able to utilize floodgates and just bring up big beaters and sit on them. Not super fun to play against, but it's a deck. It's something you should be aware of. Next one we want to talk about is Mystic Mine Burn. This deck, it started topping some regionals. I think that a lot of that just like happened because people were unprepared, and like, but it doesn't, I don't think it has the consistency right now to be able to do really good in like top in like Nats, unless people are just holding mine back until Nats are like at the NAWCQ. But this deck's a thing. Just be prepared for it. It's not super hard to beat. Just make sure you can out the mine, and like most of the time you're pretty solid. Which you should just be able to play for anyway, since like Orcus and Striker are playing mine right now. Even some altar guys are playing mine. Subterrors can play mine. Like True Draco can play mine. There's so much mine in the format. Be just prepared for this card, really, in general. Run back row hate in the main deck if you really can. Unless you're like a really dependent going first deck like Thunder Dragon, they can go first or second, but if they play a mine going second, a lot of times they just scoop. Alright, so next one to talk about is Pendulum or Endymion. I bunch this into one because I feel like that's what Pendulum has become. It's just like a one. There's no like Pendulum. It's just Pendulum's a deck and that's it. Like, that's how I just feel how Pendulums are now. It's not like, oh, like sure there's Dino Mist and stuff like that somewhat being played, but like for the most part, it's just like Pendulum is a deck, and that's about it. This deck is pretty good. Like, the Endymion support helps a lot, being able to bring out a really big beater, sending up a pretty big board of negates and whatnot. But it lacks some consistency. It lacks some other things as well. So it's kind of eh. Another one I want to talk about is Dino variants. The only real reason I put this on here is like Misk is at 3. I think like that just helps Dinos out so much. I think Misk is like an absolutely insane card. So like having it at 3 helps out that deck. It just helps out it overall, and whatnot. So there's really not much else to say about that. There's like really nothing to do with Dinos like doing too much in the meta right now. It's just something I wanted to put on here. And then Crusadia, Guard Dragon, like the deck it's insane, but it's fragile. I think that's why people have just kind of shifted to playing the through Thunder Dragon with the Guard Dragons. It just makes a little bit more sense. They can play through a lot more and do more. But like Crusadia Guard Dragon, when you set up the board like a Gamma Seal lock, a lot of times you just win. I think this deck is actually super powerful. And then the last one we're going to talk about is, yeah, I just copped out. We just put other. There's just like, there's so many decks that we could talk about. There's still some Luna Light doing some things in the format. There's still some Cyber Dragon doing some things in the format. There's just so many decks right now that are viable and able to be played. I can't really go over everything. I think that like for the most part this is a pretty decent list of like what to expect going into a Nats. I might have missed something. I hope I didn't really miss anything big. I did try to prepare for this video pretty well, but things happen. I think that like there's just so many decks right now, you can't go over everything, but these are like the bigger ones I see more like played more than anything, especially like on Dueling Book and like that. There's like Evil Eye, even though like no one's really playing that right now. There's some few things going around, but right now these are the bigger ones I want to talk about. Some stuff is throwing some Shadal package and some things and whatnot too. But anyway, guys, let me know if that's what I think of the format. That's how I kind of see it right now. Let me know what you guys think by commenting down below. Thank you guys so much. We hit 900 subs finally. I am super pumped about that. We're 100 away from being able to monetize again, and really get this channel rolling. But anyway, guys, like I said, please comment, like, subscribe, and we'll talk to you later.